Thank you.
I'm not
Good
ready.
evening and welcome to the May 25th meeting of the Falmouth Conservation Commission. This meeting is being held virtually via Zoom video conference. Please be patient. We'll do our best to be efficient and allow everyone to participate equitably. This meeting is also being broadcast and streamed online by FCTV in real time. As this meeting is being recorded by Zoom and broadcast by FCTV, please be cognizant of what you say, how you say it, and what can be seen and heard in your background. The chair acknowledges the attendance and continued support of our entire staff, Jen, Melissa, Liz, Mark, Amy, and Kristen. We are a short one commissioner tonight, so the appointed alternate will be Pat. I'd like to remind the commissioners that for commenting, I'll call on each of you at the appropriate time so we can refrain from speaking over each other. Also, all votes need to be done by roll call. So when I call your name, please state your name and your vote, even if you made the motion or the second. To our public participants, at any time during this meeting, you may enter any comments or questions via the chat function. At the appropriate time, they will be read into the record. The link and further instructions are located on the agenda. As per Chapter 22 of the Acts of 2022 regarding COVID-19, now allows for full public participation. Therefore, if you'd like to be heard on a specific hearing, let us know via the chat function. Then at the appropriate time, I will call for public comment. When you are selected, you will be moved into the hearing as a participant. As such, you must have your video enabled. Be succinct and respectful of others. Public comments will be limited to 3 minutes each. For those of you waiting for a particular hearing tonight, so you don't have to wait unnecessarily, the following two hearings are requesting continuance: 267 Clinton Avenue and 24 Willis Lane. All right, first up, request for a continuance under a notice of intent. 267 Clinton Ave, LLC, 267 Clinton Avenue, Falmouth, Mass. For permission to install and maintain an on-site Title V septic system upgrade, leaching field bed, and dewatering control system. Done.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the applicant is requesting a continuance until June 29th.
Wow.
They have to meet with the
For a while.
DPW and,
I think that one was for June 8th.
what was that?
I think 24 Willis is continuing to the 29th. I think this one is to June 8th. I'll check my email.
No, I'm reading 27 Clinton. Please accept continuance Wednesday, June 29th.
Oh, okay. I mixed them up. Sorry.
Okay.
All right, anybody?
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to continue this hearing until 6:29. Betsy?
Gladfelter, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin?
O'Brien, aye.
Pat?
Harris, aye.
Peter?
Walsh, aye.
Steve?
Aye.
It is unanimous. We have continued this until 6:29. Next up, Sarah Chirano Flores, Nutter McLennan and Fish LLP, 24 Willis Lane, Falmouth, Mass. For permission to conduct Phragmites management and to install a cobble reinforced high marsh. Done.
Yes, 24 Willis would like a continuance until June 8th.
So moved.
Second, O'Brien.
All right, we have a motion and a second to continue this until 6/8. Betsy?
Gladfelter, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin?
O'Brien, aye.
Pat?
Harris, aye.
Peter?
Walsh, aye.
Steve?
Aye.
It is unanimous. We have continued this until June 8th. Next up are requests for determination of applicability. I'm sorry, I'm gonna trash this name, no disrespect intended. Paul Legutko and Mary Daly, 169 Allen Avenue, Falmouth, Mass. For permission to upgrade an existing failed sewage disposal system with a new Title V system. Ms. Bergeron.
Staff recommends a -2 under the state and bylaw. Resource area boundaries are not confirmed.
Gladfelter, so moved.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second to accept staff's recommendation. Betsy?
Gladfelter, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin?
O'Brien, aye.
Pat?
Harris, aye.
Peter?
Walsh, aye.
Steve?
Pat and I.
It is unanimous. We have accepted staff's recommendation. Next up, Michael Ryan, 140 Associates Road, West Falmouth, Mass. For permission to install a new IA septic system. Ms. Bergeron.
Staff recommends a -3 under the state and a -2 under the bylaw. Resource area boundaries are not confirmed.
I make a motion to accept staff's recommendation. Gladfelter.
And second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second to accept staff's recommendation. Betsy?
Gladfelter, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin?
O'Brien, aye.
Pat?
Harris, aye.
Peter?
Walsh, aye.
Steve?
Pat and I.
It is unanimous. We have accepted staff's recommendation. Thank you. Next up, Frank W. Beckstein III, 342 Edgewater Drive West, East Falmouth, Mass. For permission to construct an addition, garage, deck, and pool to upgrade the existing sewage disposal system to meet Title V standards, to remove the existing rinse station and sheds, and to replace the driveway. Ms. Bergeron?
Staff recommends a -2 under the state and bylaw. Resource area boundaries are not confirmed.
Make a motion to accept staff's recommendation. Gladfelter.
Pat and second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to accept staff's recommendation. Betsy?
Gladfelter, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin?
O'Brien, aye.
Pat?
Harris, aye.
Peter?
Walsh, aye.
Steve?
Pat and I.
It is unanimous. We have accepted staff's recommendation. Thank you. Next up, Clifford and Sarah Brangwin, 20 Field Street, Falmouth, Mass. For permission to construct a 420 square foot deck. Ms. Bergeron.
Staff recommends a -2 under the state and bylaw. Resource area boundaries are not confirmed.
Make a motion to accept staff's recommendation. Gladfelter.
Pat and second.
We have a motion and a second to accept staff's recommendation. Betsy?
Gladfelter, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin?
O'Brien, aye.
Pat?
Harris, aye.
Peter?
Walsh, aye.
Steve?
Pat and I.
It is unanimous. We have accepted staff's recommendation. Thank you. Next up, Ian and Nina Drummond, 25 Harrisburg Avenue, Falmouth, Mass. For permission to raise, RAZE, an existing dwelling and construct a new dwelling and to upgrade the existing sewage disposal system to meet Title V standards. Ms. Bergeron?
Staff recommends a -2 under the state and bylaw. Resource area boundaries are not confirmed.
Thank you.
Make a motion to accept staff's recommendation. Gladfelter.
Pat and second.
We have a motion and a second to accept staff's recommendation. Betsy?
Gladfelter, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin?
O'Brien, aye.
Pat?
Harris, aye.
Peter?
Walsh, aye.
Steve?
Pat and I.
It is unanimous. We have accepted staff's recommendation. Next up, Paul Kelleher, 31 Whittier Road, East Falmouth, Mass. For permission to construct a 12-foot by 16-foot deck. Ms. Bergeron?
Staff recommends a -2 under the state bylaw. Resource area boundaries are not confirmed.
Well, I'll make it unanimous. I'll make a motion to accept staff's recommendation. Gladfelter.
Patton second, although I don't think it's unanimous.
It's almost though, Steve. I'm not sure anybody else is listening other than you and me.
Hey, it's your night, you know? All right, we have a motion and a second to accept staff's recommendation. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Pat,
Harris, aye.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Steve.
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. We have accepted staff's recommendation. If you notice, almost every meeting, it's always ends up being the same two people. But
That way we don't talk over each other.
see, somebody's listening to my rules. All right. Next up are requests for a hearing under notice of intent. All hearings of the Falmouth Conservation Commission are held simultaneously under the authorities of the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Falmouth Wetlands Bylaw. Although a single decision of the commission is issued, it represents a separate decision under each authority. And as a reminder, commenting is limited to 3 minutes. So I encourage you to stay within the purview of this board, which are the rules and regulations of the Wetlands Protection Act and the Falmouth Wetlands Bylaw, and how they pertain to a particular application. The chair reserves the right to stop any commenting that is disparaging or inconsequential to the hearing. First up, Gregory Marcotte, White Sands Association Trust, 59 Davis Neck Road, Falmouth, Mass, for permission to conduct beach nourishment. Ben?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I've promoted Matt Costa up to present the project.
Oh, Mr. Costa?
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Thank you. For the record, Matt Costa, on behalf of Holmes McGrath and the applicant, we're presenting this project tonight, and I'm going to go ahead and share my screen if that's okay.
Absolutely.
All right. Can everybody see the plan?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
All right, we're here tonight under notice of intent application for a beach nourishment project. Your resource areas for this project include land under the ocean, land containing shellfish, coastal beach, coastal bank. We're located at the end of Davis Neck Road here on Google Earth. You can see Davis Neck extension here is not a paved area. It's got current gravel access. Here is the property subject of the application where beach nourishment would be taking place. This property did have some previous orders of conditions for reconstructing the seawall and doing a previous beach nourishment project. Adjacent to this property is a town-owned Davis Neck Road layout, and then another private property to the east. Switching back to the plan here, what we're doing is similar to the previous application, which some of you may have remembered, but we're going to be placing sand of compatible grain size on the existing coastal beach. Construction access will be via the gravel roadway within the public layout. And then we'll be building a sand ramp. Well, buildings are loose. It's a rather luxurious work for this. We will be creating a sand ramp down to their beach area where they're essentially dumping the sand on the beach and leveling it out. Showing the profiles, what we're looking at. We're looking then to do about 150 cubic yards a year. On average, it's going to increase the depth of that sand about 1.5 feet. The purpose of this is to protect the stone revetment that's in place now. This revetment is, as I mentioned, fairly newly constructed and has seen some damage from previous storms. And they're trying to use this as a preventative method, so we don't have to keep rebuilding it. There was access stairs that were wiped out by the storm. That does have a valid order of conditions. Those will be built under that order of conditions. There has been some damage to the revetment out in the town area. So that's just further evidence that trying to treat this beach nourishment as a preventative method. We do believe that the project meets all of the applicable performance standards as we have outlined in our narrative, and we are respectfully requesting that you issue an order of conditions. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Matt.
Would you like me to stop sharing?
Yes, please. And do you want to start?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Alyssa had a few questions. So the stairs are going to be rebuilt. So you won't have to, okay. We can actually let you know where the stairs are. We know. We know exactly where they are. And you have permission. You sent it, Alyssa, Matt sent us an email late today, just answering our questions. And then the 450 cubic yards. So it's 150 cubic yards annually with a total of 450.
No, so we want to do it, structure it as 150 annually. And then if the board sees fit to grant an extension and it's needed, when we can apply for an extension. That way it's not capped. So what happened before on the previous beach nourishment project is that there was a cap on it and it just forces a new filing. So this just provides more flexibility.
Okay. I think that's all we had unless Alyssa has anything to add.
I have nothing to add. Thank you.
You. All right, Commissioner comments, Betsy.
I have no comments. That was nice, short and sweet.
I was told by the chairman to keep it short and sweet.
Good.
All right. Kevin.
No questions, Mr. Chairman.
Pat.
No questions.
Peter.
My question is, will there be some tracking to see if the sand is unnecessary or more sand is necessary?
Yeah, this is a very closely watched area. The person that's really driving this application is Greg Marcotte, and he owns number 55, which is directly behind the seawall, number 55 Davis Neck. Together with the White Sands Association, they are looking very closely at this. So when we do the beach nourishment, we do beach profiles. We survey the beach before the sand's placed and afterwards. So we can always tell from a survey, how much has been eroded.
Okay, no further questions.
Thank you. Steve? You're on mute, Steve.
Thank you. I don't have any questions. That was an excellent answer to Peter's question.
Thank you. Jen, is there anything in the public chat function?
Nothing in the public chat and no one has their hands raised.
All right.
Then I'll make a motion to close the hearing and take it under advisement.
Second, Patton.
Perfect. All right, we have a motion and a second to close the hearing. If there's nothing else. All right, Betsy.
Gladfelter, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin.
O'Brien, aye.
Pat.
Harris, aye.
Peter.
Walsh, aye.
Steve,
Matt and I.
is unanimous. We have closed this hearing. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you very much.
Matt, are you on any other hearing tonight?
31 Beckles, if you want to do that one next, that'd be awesome.
No, that's up to the chairman and probably not.
Then I'll
Nice try though.
All right. And chairman acknowledges Maury's attendance. So the next one up, Andrew Richard Choosed. Samantha Barry Choosed, 55 Racing Beach Avenue, Falmouth, Mass. For permission to construct a terrace, landing and rent station, to remove a landing and to install mitigation plantings. Jen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, give me 1 second. I'm going to be promoting, where am I? Promoting Mike Borselli and Elaine Johnson up to, oh, there's Elaine, present their project.
Okay.
And they should be coming in momentarily. Elaine, you're gonna have to click something on your end. I'm attempting to make you a panelist. There we go.
Wow, look at that vibrant shirt Mike has on. Steve, I thought you had it, but he beat you tonight.
Blood red.
Yeah.
This used to be that red.
All right, are we waiting for Elaine?
She's right there.
She is. All right. Mike, you're up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. For the record, Mike Borselli, Falmouth Engineering, representing the applicant, along with Elaine Johnson. We're both here to, I'll make the initial presentation, and if Elaine needs to chime in or answer questions, she's available as well. With your permission, I'd like to share my screen.
Yes, sir.
The property in question is number 55 Racing Beach Avenue. You've seen this property before. It's on the corner of the main road coming in, which I think is also called Racing Beach. And you turn right along the water. The beach is on the other side of the road where this riprap is, and Buzzards Bay is further west. There's an existing single-family dwelling on the property. There's a coastal dune system that we've shown west of the property. There's a sloping landform that wraps around the property that is considered a coastal bank. And then beyond that is a wetland resource, BBW, that was reviewed and approved at a previous application. The project is basically new improvements to some of the elements surrounding the main house. There's a new owner, and they wanted to do a few upgrades, and I'll walk you through those briefly. These came as a result of design in consultation by Elaine with the owner. First off, there's a proposal for a new landing shown here in gray. I'm going to work my way around the house clockwise. There's a proposed drip strip for roof runoff proposed along here. There's an existing landing that's proposed to be removed and replaced with a larger 14 by 20 foot stone terrace. It does not move any closer to wetland resources than the closest point of the existing primary structure. There's a proposed rinse station measuring 6 by 8 adjacent to that. On the south side that I've highlighted in green, and I'll tell you why in a minute, is an additional roof drip strip for roof runoff. So all these elements are considered redevelopment. They are incremental increases in square footage of impervious surfaces. And the net result is tabulated over here. And then there's some notes. This is the plan in the file, but the notes are in response to the staff report. I figured I'd just use them to cue me up to what the staff report said. So originally we believed that when you do the inventory of all these impervious surfaces, there was mainly because of this larger terrace, but all of the other elements like this drip strip, this rinse station, and this stoop taken into account, and then crediting out this small stoop. When dust settled, you were required to do 1,100 square feet of mitigation planting. Subsequent to receipt of the staff report, they pointed out that I had missed that there was a strip proposed here and I didn't account for that. That's an additional 45 square feet. So when you go through the math, I'm showing all the adds equaling 368 and then the deducts for 38, which got me to the 330. But I've neglected 45 square feet for that green area that's an additional impervious surface. So the real increase is 375 in the A zone. And when you apply a factor of 3 to that, and then a small B zone factor, you end up with basically needing another 100 square feet of mitigation planting. So instead of 1,100, we were proposing to add another 100 square feet here. All of this is proposed mitigation planting equaling 1,200 square feet adjacent to the dune in a lawn area. There's also trees proposed because we all know that you need one tree for every 1,000 square feet. The applicant has done more than that, I think. And these trees aren't part of the mitigation calculation, but they're proposed trees as part of Elaine's design. So I think that sums up the project in my effort to respond to the staff comments that I replied to as soon as I could. And I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you. Elaine, do you have anything you want to add before we move to commissioner comments? Elaine?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm falling asleep, people. I had Nantucket last night. No, my client, Mr. and Mrs. Chusid, it's Andrew Chusid is the correct pronunciation.
Thank you.
Are brand new owners. They're a very excited young couple with 2 young children. I purchased the house, I believe, last August. So it's a brand new home to them. And they fully understand their need to mitigate based on a few of the elements that they requested from me. Mainly a terrace in the backyard that Michael explained to you, a small monolithic granite step off the edge of that porch to get them down to the driveway. That elevation there is a little higher than the rest of the porch. And we all like the idea of a drip edge to catch the water and the runoff from the eaves. And basically that's it. So with Michael's help, we came up with the square footage for mitigation with the 3 factor. And they have a nice, call it front yard. And the beauty of that area that was pointed out on the plan is that there's a raised berm. It's the coastal dune, which gives a little bit of protection in what is a very extreme site, as you obviously can well imagine, as far as salt spray, wind, and so on. So it's nice to have that elevated dune there to give some protection. I've tried to work with some plants, shrubs, and herbaceous perennials that are fairly salt tolerant with the goal of having a vibrant native habitat that's going to stand the rigors of that particular location. Based on the report that was filed with us last night, I did make a decision, and I'm open to your comments and suggestions also as well, to eliminate a couple of the ground covers and add more woody shrubs to that planting, in addition to the herbaceous perennials and grasses, and then the ground cover. The trees in the back are native junipers and elmioncus, our native shadblow, or what's the other name? That was just something I thought would be nice to add on those two corners of the backyard, although I knew it was not necessary for mitigation. Questions, comments, suggestions to help us
Right.
with the
We're all
mitigation?
set. Thank you. Jen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Mike, the rinse station, on your plan, you show it as 6x8. On Elaine's plan, there's a piece of lattice in front. The area between your 6x8 rinse station and that bulkhead, is that also going to be that mahogany decking?
No.
No, it's just going to be grass.
Yes.
Elaine, is it going to be grass, or is there going to be
Yes.
stepping stones, or
Yes, just grass, basically.
it's just going to be grass? Okay.
Yeah. The lattice, Jen,
Yes.
the lattice panel is not really part of the rinsing station. It's a freestanding panel in front of some very unsightly exterior plumbing and mini.
Oh, I didn't know if it was kind of like a little changing area. It was kind of hard to see,
No.
like determine on your plan,
Yeah.
because on your plan, it kind of looked like there was some
It's-
lines
You'll-
associated that could have been like flooring.
Yeah, you see it looking down is to the right of the rinsing station. On that wall of the house right there is
Yeah.
quite an
the
interesting
utilities.
contraption on the exterior wall, very unsightly. I don't know why. Well, I'm not a builder or an architect, but it's there.
Okay. No,
This-
that's
this-
fine. We were just curious and wanted some confirmation of what that was, what that area was going to be used for. And if it was like kind of like a little changing, staging, shower staging area, if it had a floor. So thank you for clarifying that.
Jen, we do propose to put some privacy enclosure around the rinse station, though.
No, I understand.
Okay.
I understand. And the board needs to know that's in a velocity zone, so just pointing that out. Elaine, I think with your planting plan, Mike, how many square feet of mitigation? You said it was, I have your email right here.
1,200 square feet.
So you need 1,200 square feet. Elaine, I think we're just going to need a little bit more detail from you on how many shrubs and what shrubs you're putting in, because the board doesn't typically allow grasses and herbaceous material to be considered mitigation. So that 1,200 square feet, is going to have to be entirely made up of woody shrubs.
Okay.
You are perfectly free to put your herbaceous material in addition to that, in front of that, if you'd like. There are some designers out there that do kind of like a perennial border in front of the mitigation, but the mitigation is going to have to be all that woody shrub. So we're going to need a shrub count on your end.
Sure. So I won't be restricted then if I want to extend that, call it the bed.
No, you won't. So if you wanted to, in addition to the mitigation, do that kind of herbaceous border, that's perfectly fine. But we do need a plant count on that mitigation. And the ground cover, as Alyssa had pointed out, the bearberry and that low mount aronia it's usually typically, this board doesn't typically approve that type of ground cover for mitigation.
Okay.
And you can also, I understand what you're doing with the Amelanchier in the back corner and in the eastern red cedar, but those areas are right on that wetland. We've been on this property and we know what it's back there. So you can also use those areas back there.
Okay, you mean for mitigation?
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, they're right on that wetland. That wetland is right there. It should have like some sort of little border. So
Okay,
you may want to just,
would you?
kind of
prefer
maybe
those?
utilize those areas as well. I don't know what's more important to your client, the backyard outdoor lawn space or the front yard lawn space. So
Well, they do want to view something attractive.
yeah,
From
no,
the-
absolutely.
So the 1,200, whoops, so I understand, not to interrupt.
No,
Okay, so the 1,200 square feet, which we are allowing for that large planting area in the front yard, okay? We will habitat with woody shrubs.
Mhm.
Okay. And you need to know what shrubs I'm going to use? I
what
know-
shrubs and how many of each?
All right, I do know that, but you want me to be a little more specific in a plan? Is that the idea?
Correct. Just if you want to provide that information to us, that would be helpful.
Oh, for sure.
Okay.
Now,
So
did-
that we can review it and then provide guidance to the commission.
Okay, that's easy to do, sort of. Of course, it's easy to do, just time. So I just do a planting plan for that area, Jen? Is that what you're asking for?
Correct.
Identifying the plants and how many I'm going to use. Okay.
Please.
Now, that brings me to the point of spacing. If we're using woody shrubs, obviously 2 gallon is probably, there'll be 2 to 5 gallon size. And I'm used to looking at, 3 or 4 or 5 foot on center density for that area. Is that what you folks are still considering as?
It's something we can discuss. I mean, typically the board likes their 3 gallon, their 2 gallon, 3 feet on center. But if we do have a larger shrub in that front yard, that's why I'm saying that you may want to put some of those larger shrubs in those back corners of the property, buffering that wetland. It might be a better use for them back there.
Gotcha.
And
So
not strictly decide to put all that mitigation right on that dune area. You
Okay.
may want to break it up and put some in the back.
Which I like that. I like that area very much. I like that idea very much.
Yeah.
So I can create a nice border along that wetland, use that as part of the square footage mitigation.
Correct.
And gotcha.
Correct, because that wetland's right there.
Yep.
So you may want to utilize that space you have as part of the mitigation. So,
Sure.
okay.
That'd be nice, attractive as well, which is important.
No, understandable. And if you wanted to have a discussion with Alyssa and I on when you decide what you want to do on the spacing, we can always meet with you on Zoom or something.
Oh, I'd love that.
Okay.
I appreciate that input very much
Yeah.
so.
That's all I have. I know Alyssa's probably going to have a few more items to tick off. So,
Yeah, just wanted to reiterate that for any mitigation, it is allowed to grow to its full mature form. So it's going to go in the front yard, just for your clients to keep in mind. I did notice that there's a bit of the coastal dune right now that's being mowed, and you can see that vegetation line on Mike's plan. So depending on the shrubs you're proposing and your design of the ground cover, maybe some sort of border, whether it's a split rail fence or some sort of
Sure.
to prevent any mowing might be prudent.
Yeah, we talked about that today when we saw the staff report. The single rail fence would be appropriate.
And my only other point was, and granted this may not be applicable for your changing mitigation plans, it didn't look like 5 trees could fit in the area where the arbor presently is, only because there are power lines up above and there's an overhanging tree. Those are my only points. So thank you.
The homeowner isn't crazy in love with that very rustic looking pergola arbor type of structure. So he said, if I didn't come up with anything really interesting and fun with that, he isn't adverse to remove it if you feel it's in the way of, trees and their growth.
So we were proposing to remove that, and we could spread the trees out a little bit, I think.
Yeah.
right,
All I have, Jeannie.
thank you. Commissioner comments, Kevin,
No questions, Mr. Chairman.
Maury,
The only concern I have is the lattice. The V zone, we're usually pretty consistent on fences and V zones, and lattice is pretty much a fence. Maybe they could incorporate some kind of nice espalier, evergreen or something, some planting along there instead of the fence. And other than that, I think everybody, the staff covered every other concern. Thank you.
Pat,
No questions, thanks.
Peter,
No questions. Thank you.
Steve,
No questions, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
thank you. Betsy,
No questions. Thanks, Jamie.
all right. Jen, is there anything in the public chat function, please?
Nothing in the public chat, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mike or Elaine, is there anything else you need to add?
No, I was just hoping that since we went through the revisions, we could submit a revised plan and hopefully close tonight, so we can take advantage of the season for planting.
Mike, I can't approve it was we talked very conceptually about what Elaine's gonna do. So I kind of want to see a plan, but if you can get it to me by next week, we could put you on the June 8th.
It's really more on Elaine.
Elaine, could you get us a plan and maybe talk to us towards the end of this week, early next week, and get a plan together by next Wednesday?
I will try. What would be my next date, Jen?
After that, we're looking at June 15th.
Okay, let me write this down. June 8th or June 15th.
Yep. I mean, we can aim for the 8th, and if you're just not ready, we can bump it out to the 15th.
Right.
How about that?
Sure, it's certainly not a difficult thing to do. It's just, as you know, this time of year, what else is going on?
I know you guys are all busy, but why don't we just kind of aim for the June 8th hearing? And Elaine, if you just can't pull it together, we'll delay it to the 15th.
Yep, I think, I've got that whole weekend before that date, that's going to be helpful. Now, as far as that filing of that plan, Jen, should Mike get it to you, or you want me to email it to you, or?
Well, we'll need hard copies, so however you work it with Mike, it doesn't matter.
If you give me an email, I can print it and hand deliver them from here to save you the trip to Falmouth.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And I was gonna revise my plan as well, so I'll do that. To show the 1,200 square feet and the additional privilege.
Okay.
One last thing, so I understand completely. I can create that nice border in the back of X amount of square feet and reduce the size of the other area in the front based on that calculation.
Yep, and then you can also add your herbaceous border in front of the mitigation if you choose to do so.
That'd be nice, because he's got a flagpole out there and we kind of envision something aesthetic around that. Yeah.
Okay. And
All right,
Elaine,
so
if you
looking at
want to
Ju-
meet with Alyssa and I, just let us know and we'll pick a time, okay?
Perfect. Thanks for your help, Jen.
Not a problem.
Nice meeting you, Alyssa.
They were looking at June 8th?
Mhm.
Okay,
Okay, at the request of the applicant, we'll continue this to June 8th. Carlo Hawks.
Gladfelter, second.
okay, we have a motion and a second to continue this till June 8th. There's nothing further. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Maury,
Carlo Hawks, aye.
Pat,
RSI.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Steve.
Aye.
It is unanimous. We have continued this until June 8th. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Mike. Mike,
Thank
you have the
you,
next one, so just hang tight.
Thank you, everybody.
Good night, Elaine.
Good night.
Next up, Robert Sperry, RSC Realty Trust, 134 Antlers Shore Drive, East Falmouth, Mass. For permission to construct a shed. remove existing landscape timbers and install mitigation plantings. Jen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Borselli is here to present his project.
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Michael Borselli, Falmouth Engineering. I represent the applicant. With your permission, I'd like to share my screen.
Yes, sir.
This property is at 134 Antler Shores, and it has frontage on Eel Pond, or in the upper reaches of Eel Pond. There's a salt marsh system, land under the ocean, of course, and land containing shellfish seaward of the salt marsh. This commission issued an order of conditions to allow for the reconstruction of the dock on the property. You can see the reconstructed location. There's a single family dwelling on the property, and there's land subject to coastal storm flowage, which is shown in the blue boundary here running right through the house. AE 12 is seaward of this line, and landward is not a special flood hazard zone. But the land is sloping so that it meets the definition of a coastal bank. So the top of the bank actually is shown here, hitting the house and running out. These are the same wetland resources you've previously reviewed. This is basically permission to install a 9x11 shed, just under 100 square feet. We did meet with Jen about this. We had initially thought it might qualify as an RDA, but we checked with her and she thought it would be best to file an NOI since there's mitigation planting and you can condition it. So the plan shows the 99 square foot shed, and it shows 2 areas of mitigation planting, 200 square feet here, and what's supposed to be labeled 100 square feet, but was mislabeled 200. That was pointed out in the staff report. I thought I might slip that by Alyssa, but I wasn't able to do that. So
You should know better by now, Mike.
this is actually 100 square feet, so the total's 300. And the landscape timbers are shown here that are to be removed on both sides. So this will enhance the buffer to the salt marsh somewhat to mitigate for the shed. The applicant's asking for permission to remove this pine tree and in place put 2 eastern red cedar. There were some comments in the staff report. I'll just touch base on those briefly. There was Alyssa had rightfully pointed out that the decks were new. They were replacements in the same footprint as the existing deck. The applicant determined they were in a state of disrepair, and he removed them and rebuilt them in the same exact footprint. At a previous time, there was a septic system upgrade. There's a septic system under this driveway. That was actually reviewed, I believe, under an RDA by the previous owner before Mr. Sperry purchased the property. It was installed, and during that installation process, after it was backfilled and regraded and shaped, I'm not sure on the exact timing, but there used to be a slate walkway leading to the front door here. It was adjusted to this position I show in red. I haven't surveyed that, but I saw that on this aerial photo. If you look at this closely, you can see that it's at an angle to the driveway instead of straight on. So I can submit a revised plan. This may be slightly bigger in impervious surface. If it is, I can add a little bit more mitigation to the 100 square feet over here to offset that. There was also a comment about a pine tree this pine tree evidently was removed. When I spoke to the applicant today, he said to me that the branches from this pine tree were starting to interfere with the overhead wires, and he did not realize he needed permission to remove that. He did remove it. He thought since it was on this side of the house and was threatening the wires, he could remove it. I told him that he should have at least called Jen, took some pictures, but he didn't. But he tells me he replaced it with another tree. I didn't notice, but I believe there's a small tree to replace that. He did replace it after he cut it. So that's the one thing I'm not sure how to proceed on. I think that sums it up. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Mike. Jen?
Yeah, Mike, yes, Mike. The rebuilt decks.
Yep.
They don't seem to actually, your plan doesn't seem to actually match what's out there. Or at least the pictures we have. Can you confirm that for us?
Yeah, I've field checked it. The decks are in the same place. There was, they were built right on top of the same footprints. They don't move closer, and they're the same shape with this angle cutout is there. He did
Because the
also.
steps, I mean, the stairs off your plan where it says concrete patio, we have stairs that we have a picture of stairs coming down off of that, and there's a step that comes in front of that. So that step could possibly be moving closer. I can show you a picture.
Maybe I missed, maybe I didn't pick up on that detail. Are you saying there's something here?
Yes, so if you stop sharing, Mike, I can share real quick. Mr. Chairman, do you mind?
Nope.
Like this right here, Mike?
Oh, yeah. Okay, I didn't pick up that detail. I didn't resurvey this subsequent to the rebuild. I'm going by what he told me, that he rebuilt it in the same footprint, but I can see where the stairs, I can add those stairs to the plan.
And where you have that dotted line, like in front of that shower, what did that depict?
Underneath this deck used to be a concrete slab.
Okay. Oh, I see what you
That
said.
he built deck on top of. He left it there and just enclosed it in wood decking to make it, look better.
Okay. Let me stop sharing. Sorry about that. So if you can just go and kind of pick up that step and see where that ended up, that might have to be recessed back into it. What else?
I'm hopeful, if I can share my screen quickly again, I'm hopeful when I measure those that they don't come out any closer than these two leading edges of the existing decks. I'm hoping that they're here, and that the closest point would be from one of these two faces.
Okay. Okay, and I guess the board's gonna have to decide, because I have heard from a number of you about, the structure moving closer. The board does need to decide what they want to do about sheds. Do you want them up next to the houses? Do you want them closer to the resource areas? So the board will have to decide what you want to do about that. And that's all I have, unless Alyssa has anything else she'd like to add, since it's her staff report.
The only other note I had is that I didn't see a building permit on file for the deck reconstruction, but I also didn't check with the building department either, so they might just want to double check that.
Yeah, I can't, I don't know if you apply for building permit, I can't.
Yeah.
That info.
Note. But you hit all my questions, so thank you.
Thank you. All right, commissioner comments. Maury.
My only concern was if we allow the shed to be in that location, that we make a finding. Because it is a structure and it is moving closer, and I don't want it to turn into a newer, bigger structure in the future, or they use that as a point to move close, add on to the rest of the house.
We wouldn't allow that, Maury, that it says not moving, any expansion cannot move closer than the present primary structure. So I think the board has been pretty consistent where the present primary structure is the house. And no, you cannot use a shed, although some have tried. Don't know if it's been Mike, but some have tried to say, oh, the shed's here, I can put my new house right there. And I think we said no to that a very long time ago.
All right, and then the second thing was that I think it's an AC unit or something. And I don't know what the elevation is, but it does concern me. I mean, it's not probably in our purview, but if that's in a flood zone, that thing should be elevated with all the electrical being basically down there. Other than that, nothing. Thank you.
Thank you. Pat. Pat, you're on mute.
No questions, thank you.
Peter,
No questions. Thank you.
Steve,
No questions, thank you.
Betsy,
Yeah, I was one of the ones who questioned where the shed was. 1018-7C1 says for those resources, and these are some of them, any expansion or addition of an impervious surfaces, examples, expansion of a primary structure such as a house and addition of accessory structures in Zone A must not move closer to the resource area than the present primary structure or no closer than 25 feet from the resource, whichever is furthest from the resource area. So Mike, is this shed, well, primary structures would be the limiting factor.
Yeah. Jen and I met on this because it seemed to be a little fuzzy, and since it was a shed and it wasn't an addition, we went over it and we both thought, and we acted on that a shed was, not treated the same as an expansion of the structure. So we thought you could make a finding for a small shed like this to allow it, given that there's a benefit of adding the mitigation. We really looked to see if we could find a better place for it. And the only other place that would have possibly worked was to move it all the way back here. And this is where the slope is. So it couldn't put it on the slope. That was the problem with that. This is the flat area. So that was our thinking. I mean, that was the way we proceeded.
Okay, well, it's an accessory structure. So I'm not going to vote for this as it is, just to let you know. It doesn't meet this regulation.
Even without you can't make a finding.
Well, then you can do that for every regulation. We could have made a regulation for the structure that was in the V zone. Was that your project? No, that wasn't your project.
No, that wasn't Mike's project.
I mean, you can do that for you can take any regulation and say, well, we'll make an exception. We'll make a finding and then we'll make an exception. I'm just telling you, I'm one person, but this is what the regulation says.
I agree.
I'm not going to disagree.
I agree.
all right. Anything else, Betsy?
No, thanks, Jamie.
Kevin,
Sorry, Mike, but I'm going along with Betsy.
all right. Jen, is there anything in the public chat function?
Nothing in the public chat, Mr. Chairman.
And we're gonna want the deck stairway to be clarified before we close this, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Maybe Mike and I can try to figure out a different place for this shed.
I'd like to request a continuance to June 15th.
At the request of the applicant, I'll make a motion to continue this to June 15th.
Carla Hawk, second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to continue this until June 15th. Is there anything else? All right, Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Maury,
Carla Hawk's eye.
Pat,
Harris, aye.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Steve.
Aye.
It is unanimous. We have continued this until June 15th. Thank you, Mr. Borselli.
All right, thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Right, Mike?
Good night.
Mike, is this your last one or you are? Okay. Good night.
Good night.
I don't think we made his night. All right, next up, Marie Russell, Marine Biological Laboratory, 100 Water Street, Woods Hole, Mass. For permission to install a concrete stem wall behind an existing seawall. Ken?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, sorry, give me one moment, please. I am promoting Ryan McCoy of Collins Engineering, not the Collins Engineering you're used to seeing. This is Collins Engineering out of, I believe, Rhode Island. And he is going to be presenting the seawall repair at MBL. And I lost my green marker. Not that anybody cares.
I care, Jen.
I don't. We're moving forward. Mr. McCoy, you're up, sir.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. With your permission, I'd like to share my screen if I could.
Yes, sir.
I have that option to share my screen yet or no? Is that?
Not yet.
Here we go. All right.
There you are.
Be up and running, get this out of the way. All right, like I said, my name is Ryan McCoy. I'm representing the Marine Biological Laboratory. Project site is at 100 Water Street at Woods Hole Waterfront Park. So just to give you guys a frame of reference, we're down here in the waterfront. Here's the park here, USGS map, as well as the FEMA flood map. So the site is, like we said, the work is on the seawall. So the site is located within the FEMA flood zone, 100-year flood zone. It's a VE zone is the front of the site, which is where most of the work is taking place. We'll address sea level rise just quickly. We know that projects in land subject to coastal storm flowage should address sea level rise. And you'll see as I start talking about the project, most of our work is going to be underground. We're not really raising the height of the seawall or physically addressing sea level rise, but we have considered it. The applicant is actively part of the study that's going on for resiliency in Woods Hole. If future modifications of the seawall happen or the park happen, they'll be addressing that. This is more structural to address immediate concerns. So just some site photographs. So we have an existing stone masonry seawall, mostly pointed at this point. It was dry laying at first. It's been pointed, repointed over the years. So you can see some of the mortar is brighter and newer. Some of it is missing or starting to deteriorate. At the western end of the site, there is a sandy beach area. There's some steep stairs at the end that provide access to the beach. The whole site itself is open to the public. Even though Woods, the Marine Biological Laboratory owns it, it is just a public park. So again, the photo to the right shows some of the concerns that we have with the site right now. Some of the patching that's been going on because of the deterioration of the seawall. So some of that mortar falls out, some of the stones fall out. We're losing the material behind, which is causing sinkholes in the back. Again, similar photos. You can see a little bit along these photos, some of the space, the gap that's between the existing pavement and the top of the wall, showing a little bit of the movement that's there. Not too surprising if it's smaller gaps, but some of the bigger gaps are what's of main concern for us. Towards the western end of the wall, there is a timber pier that extends perpendicular to the wall. That's again open to the public. Beneath that pier, there are seawater intake pipes. They run below the pier, through the stone wall, under this raceway, utility raceway, and into the pump house, which then gets pumped into the labs. So part of that work is addressing the walls of this raceway, as well as the timber boardwalk. In the photo on the left, you can see some of the depressions along either side of that boardwalk. The patches on the east side, there's depressions on the west side. And most of that is, again, because of the walls inside that raceway are starting to fail. And that's what you're seeing on the picture on the right there. There's CMU or cinder block walls just stacked, partially undermined. The mortar and grout and everything is starting to deteriorate as well. You can see in some of the next pictures, some of the major concerns we have here. Structural cracking, failure of the blocks, really see some movement under there. So really, again, this project is to address all these structural deficiencies that we found at the site. So running through the existing site plan, like I said, just quickly on the west end is the sandy beach area. There's stairs access over here. And then starting from west and heading east, we have the two piers, the one pier on the west. The pier on the east is more for commercial access or just private access, really. So, and then again, on the west end, we have the seawater intake pipes and the pump houses at this end of the park as well. So the proposed scope of work is really to address the issues that we have with the seawall. Like I said, we're losing the backfill, and so we have sinkholes developing along the top side. And so the full scope that we're permitting is these repairs along the entire length of the wall. But due to funding, primarily, the project's gonna be phased. So the phase one is gonna start at the west end of the site, which is the corner of the wall. That's the most critical area right now. And it's also going to address the boardwalk and the seawater pipes to protect those for the laboratory. And then phase two would be the east end of the site. And that's just going to address the remaining section of the wall, which isn't as critical at this point, and will be completed when funds are available. You can see in the cross section. So our scope of work, provided a little narrative with our application, is to come in behind the wall, saw cut the bituminous pavement, excavate the backfill material, and then place the stem wall behind the wall. This will give additional gravity. That'll help reduce the, in the long term, it should reduce the amount of fines that we lose from behind the wall and stop those sinkholes from developing. And then to address the seawater intake pipes in those CMU block walls you saw, again, we're proposing reinforced concrete walls in there. That'll address the scour that's happening at the bottom of the walls and structurally stabilize the walls to protect the seawater intake pipes. So then looking at the impacts, we have 454 square feet of permanent impacts. Those are below grade. That's not above grade impacts. And that falls within the land subject to coastal storm flowage. We do have temporary impacts from the excavation, which will be restored back to pre-construction conditions. So the bituminous paving on top will match the existing. Backfill material will be backfilled, will be removed from the excavation and then put back into the hole. So again, phase one is the west end. So it would require closing the park off to the public, or not the entire park. We keep the east end open and utilize the west end and the grass area in the middle of the site for staging and stockpile of the excavated material. Once phase one is done, that grass area will be restored again back to pre-existing. So it'll be grass, loam and seed. And then same thing with phase two, we close off the east end of the park, use that area, stockpile, and then once it's cleaned back up again, restored back to its pre-existing conditions. So again, looking at our project, we believe it meets the performance standards. We've provided some supplemental information to address some of your concerns, but I'm happy to discuss the project, answer any questions that you folks might have. So
Thank you, sir.
I'll stop sharing now so we can.
All right. All right. Did we get Betsy back?
Yep.
All right, Jen, do you want to
I
begin?
didn't realize she had disappeared. I have one question. I'm going to let Alyssa take this one. She did a lot of work on this one. Ryan, you sent this off to DEP, correct?
Correct.
We don't even see you listed on their portal yet. So we don't have a number for you. So you may want to call DEP and check.
Okay.
Usually as soon as they get it, even if they don't sign a number, they at least have you listed.
Yeah.
It was concerning to us that we didn't even see you listed on this. So
Okay.
we can't obviously close the hearing tonight without that file number. So you may want to check with, I think the analyst that's reviewing Falmouth right now, her name is Callie Harper. So you may want to check with her.
Great, thank you.
No, not a problem. And Alyssa, do you want to go with this one or not?
Sure, that's fine.
Okay.
So just a paperwork thing, if you can send us a copy of your abutter affidavit,
Yep.
and copies of the received green cards, we'll add those into the file.
Sure.
And obviously we've spoken about this before. I think it was last week sometime. The board usually does require a survey of properties, especially for things like this. But that would be up to them tonight to require one. I noticed that the plan was revised, but there wasn't a revision date. You can add those just so we can keep track of it a little better.
Yep, agreed.
If you can add the setbacks to maybe not all the resource areas, but more of them. I noticed there was a 75-foot setback that you'd added, but I'm assuming that was to land under ocean.
Yeah, land subject to tidal action.
Okay, thank you. Write that down. And then we spoke a lot about it on Zoom, but I didn't see it mentioned in the narrative. If you could just let the board know how large the trenching area would be for excavation, just so they understand conceptually how much disturbance there will be and how much will be restored.
Sure. Yeah, so the height of the wall that we're looking to repair is 8 feet high. So for a safe excavation through OSHA standards, we're looking at a 2-to-1 horizontal to vertical, so which would result in a maximum of a 16-foot wide excavation, which is about the width of that existing walkway that's on top. The contractor that we're working with out there has provided us with kind of their work plan of how they anticipate to do it. And they do anticipate using concrete blocks, not just cinder blocks, larger mafia blocks, we call them, 3x3 by 5 foot long blocks to stabilize that excavation. So they don't have to have a continuous slope up the whole way. So the excavation shouldn't be a full 16-foot wide, but that would be the maximum width of that excavation. And I didn't really touch on this too much, I didn't touch it at all tonight. But in the narrative, we discussed the scope of work a little bit. So they can't excavate the entire length of that wall all at once either. So they'll do it in sections where they can excavate about a 50-foot section, and they'll work it as the tide goes down, so they can get in there, put their forms in, and then pour the concrete in there. So it will be done in sections. We're not gonna open up the full length of the wall. Even in phase one, it's not gonna be all of phase one excavated at once. We don't have two things. We don't have the time because of the tides, but we also don't have the storage space for that amount of soil. So it will be done in 50-foot sections, just to kind of minimize the full impact at once.
Perfect, thank you. My last point was, I know that you said that you did not anticipate dewatering with this project. Something that we've noticed with projects in this area is that it's usually required dewatering. So if staff was to recommend to the board that some plan was developed in anticipation that it might happen, just so we know what protocols would be taken. But again, that's something for the board to require. And I'm all set. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ryan, why do you think you don't need dewatering?
So since we're immediately behind that seawall is free draining. But I understand that most of it is mortared, but most of your water immediately behind the wall is due to that seawater, the tidal flow. So if we're requiring the work to be done at low tide, that will be below our excavation. So we won't be working at, the water's not up at the top of the wall and we're excavating behind. That water should stabilize on either side of that wall, more or less.
Okay. And you said there's no increase in the height of the wall?
That's right,
Going
yeah.
Up to existing?
Yep,
Okay.
yep, we're staying just behind it.
And on your plan, I don't see a footing in the strictest sense. Is that correct?
That's right. That's right. Yeah, our stem wall is more to stabilize that upper part of the wall. So the bottom part of the wall, there is a sheet pile wall that was installed. I think I saw the license plans, 60s or 70s. They installed the sheet pile in concrete behind it to protect the bottom of that wall from, I assume, from scour, and to stabilize the toe of the wall. Is my assumption for why they would do it. So we're really just looking to stabilize that upper part of the wall.
Okay. All right. Commissioner comments, Pat.
So it's my understanding you're seeking to not have it signed by a surveyor because you're not doing any setbacks or lot lines on your plan. Is that what I'm understanding?
Primarily, yes. Considering that the work is immediately behind the seawall, their survey wouldn't really pick up any additional information that's not shown on the drawings already. If we're required to have a property line survey done before the work is completed, that's a significant effort to have the certified property line survey completed. That includes deed research and all the other effects. And I'm not positive that would provide us any additional information in terms of what our scope of work is versus what the impacts are.
And you said that's primarily why. Are there some secondary reasons you don't want to do a survey?
Cost, time, those are
Okay.
pretty big factors, but it's really, if there's a requirement of us to have a stamped survey plan that shows the property lines, we're more than happy to accommodate. It's just more of, in the interest of time, money, and scope of the repairs and the scope of the impacts on the project, that wasn't part of our scope.
Okay, thank you. No further
Okay.
questions, Jamie.
All right. Peter,
No questions, Mr. Chairman.
Steve,
I think the staff covered it again, sir. Thank you.
Betsy. Betsy, you're muted. Oh, there you go.
Nope. Hi, Ryan. I'm just wondering when, how long do you think, let's start with phase one. How long do you
Sure.
think phase one would take? And what time are you gonna aim for certain times of year? I mean, obviously, you're not gonna be doing in the summertime.
No, we're not. No, we're not. So phase one, we're looking at about 4 to 6 weeks of construction. Phase two is probably about the same. It doesn't have the boardwalk portion of the work, so it's a little bit easier. It's kind of just the straight excavation and filling behind. So probably about the same for the phase two. So total project, you're looking at 8 to 12 weeks if we combine it. But like I said, phase one is probably going to be this fall at this point. We don't have time to do it in the spring, summer. We're already into June next week. So, so really we're getting pushed to the fall to bang out the work, hopefully before the hurricane season and the storms really start hitting. Phase two is kind of up in the air right now once funding becomes available. We've worked with MBL to try and apply for some coastal grants, the dam and seawall grant for the state. And so we're hoping that one of those funding sources comes along so we can figure out phase two.
And I'm just curious, and maybe Jen could answer this. Are you gonna need a Chapter 91 license and an Army Corps license?
Army Corps, no. And Chapter 91 is, we are currently researching the existing license on the wall. So we found licenses for both the piers. We found information saying that it's modifications to an existing licensed wall. We know the wall that's under the gift shop is licensed. So we're just trying to tie everything together to make sure that we tie up all those loose ends.
Thank you.
Betsy, I don't know if a minor modification for a repair behind the seawall would be required, but something I could check with Brenda Mullaney at DEP. I don't think I've ever seen a minor modification for repair for a seawall, especially a repair behind a seawall when we're excavating out, but it depends if that area that we're excavating out is filled tidelands. I mean, that's what's going to determine that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. So if
I
they
can't help but think
consider
that it
this,
is.
yeah, filled tidelands, then it might need some sort of modification to the license.
Yeah, I think it usually happens for the license structure once it's there. But yeah, I've definitely seen it for the front of the wall. That's why we're trying to stay behind to avoid the minor mod requirements for Chapter 91. But we do still want to make sure that we have a license for that wall and address it when we can. So we're working with DEP's file group to see what we can dig up there, look into deeds and try to track something down. So.
Right. Anything else, Betsy?
That's all. Thanks, Jamie.
Thank you.
Okay. Kevin?
No questions, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Maury?
I just had a couple questions. Obviously you're gonna maintain the existing historic pink granite cut granite wall. That's your intent.
Yep.
Okay. Number two, you said the existing sheathing that's there, is it in good shape or you won't know until you dig?
The sheet pile that I mentioned?
Yeah.
That's actually in front of the wall. It stays, it's right in front. I'm gonna say right in front. It's probably about 3 feet in front of the wall. And the top of that sheet pile is at or just above mean low water. Okay. You can see it sticks up on the beach on the west end of it. And so,
Okay, so you feel you're comfortable that it's in good shape, that you won't, if it needed to be addressed, you will come back and let us know.
yeah, so that's in front of the wall. We're not planning to touch that at all. And it is a kind of a mass concrete. I think the sheet pile is more of like a stay in place form more than anything.
Okay.
So if that goes away, that concrete, like I said, is 3 or 4 feet wide in some spots. And I think that's kind of the main purpose of it, to have that mass. So.
Okay, and stormwater for overtopping, and I mean, that's usually the curse to all these old seawalls is, you know, the street runoff, and that's all impervious all around that. Will you address that if you have to?
I mean, it depends on the requirements, you know, so right now we're replacing it and we're restoring it in kind. And it does, I have to take a look at the configuration out there. But you know, that's something that probably willing to consider. Maybe it's not really within the scope of this project right now. It's more just trying to repair the wall. But certainly something to be considered.
True. Well, I mean, it's just something that, I mean, all those old seawalls, that's usually their biggest problem is, you know, the stormwater. I mean, you get the ocean smashing it as well, but the constant rain, stormwater runoff in behind those walls, they get hydraulic and, you know, just causes problems. So again, if you need to do something about it or you're going to address it, it would be with an amendment. Just
Of course. Yeah.
Thank you very much. It looks like a really nice project.
Thank you.
All right. Jen, is there anything in the public chat function?
Can't find my mouse with my green marker. No, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Steve has his hand raised though.
What? Yeah. Steve?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think you neglected me, but that wasn't, during your discussion earlier, you said that you would require a 16-foot excavation. Could you just describe that for me? That seemed like awfully lot of, how deep? 50 feet at a time, 16 feet wide.
8 feet.
How deep?
8 feet deep. And so it's not a 16-foot square. It's 8 feet down and then sloped back at a 2-to-1, 16 feet would be the maximum that they'd excavate.
I just want to clarify that. That seems like a lot, but I guess that's what's required to do the job. I don't know what the impact, obviously, containing whatever would be created by doing that.
Yeah, that's the maximum extent safely to have a 8-foot deep excavation with a slope like that. So we don't have just an 8-foot deep trench that's only as wide as the bucket to try and work and get people down in there. So like I said, I don't think it'll be 16 feet wide just based on the contractor's approach to it. But I also don't want to say it's only going to be 8 feet wide and we actually excavate 16 and you know, we exceed what we're telling you folks.
So again, Mr. Chairman, this would be in lieu of dropping boxes in to secure the site?
Yeah, for the excavation. That's kind of what the contractor will end up doing with those big granite, the big concrete blocks. It'll stabilize the back slope. So they'll slope it up, they'll bench it, and kind of use those as like a smaller retaining wall to stabilize the remaining fill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, I'm sorry if I skipped over you, Steve. That wasn't intentional. Don't take it personal. All right, I'm not convinced you don't need dewatering. So Jen, my question is how do we do that? I mean, I'd like to see a plan in place just in case.
I think that's prudent, Mr. Chairman. I mean, the project doesn't have a DEP number, so we do need to continue this. So it will give the applicant's representative time to develop a dewatering plan. Ryan, we usually like to see a dewatering plan. So, you know, when they're when they're excavating or, something happens and all of a sudden they do encounter water, there is a planned materials on site in place to deal with that. And we say this because I've been doing this for quite a long time, and I don't know how many times dewatering is done at the last minute, and it's just we've gotten burned before, so that's why it's kind of we always err on the side of caution. So if you could develop a dewatering plan for us for this site in consultation with the contractor, and then we'll require the contractor to have those materials on site just in case they do encounter water. I think that would be fine.
Okay.
Yes,
It
can they
seemed-
do I don't know the terminology, so forgive me, but
Sure.
can they use one of those, the float? As opposed to a trench or a pit?
And they use
We did
frac
that.
tanks.
Sorry?
Frac tanks also.
Yeah,
You mean for dewatering?
yeah.
You mean like a silt sack, like one of the bags that they pump it into and it disperses the water that way? Is that, or am I misunderstanding?
No. Jen, you remember the one we did out at,
College Light Opera,
yes, thank you.
it was a bladder. And that it was sort of what Ryan's talking about. It was a big bladder that they went
Oh,
into.
okay.
And then the silt went down and then the clean water went out.
Yeah, the water seeps out
Yeah.
and it collects the silt in the bag.
They had it on a float though, Maury, right?
Yeah, they did. Yep.
They had it on a float in the harbor.
Yeah, that kept bottoming out and it was sort of a disaster. But the other thing too is a lot of people just use like a frac tank, like dumpster kind of thing that, like they did for Old Dock Road.
Yep.
Remember there?
Oh, I remember that tank.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there's a
Okay,
few different
so-
ones, in the past we've used jersey barriers with stone and fabric and you have a stilling basin and the whole nine.
Yeah, if you could
But-
just develop something, Ryan, and then make sure, like I said, the contractor, is aware of it and will be able to have the materials on site, that would be fine.
Yeah, I do have some concerns with, preparing a plan of that magnitude. I mean, it's not a small task to dewater something like this on a small site like this. So for the contractor to actually develop a plan, which is already beyond their scope of work because we don't think it's necessary, and then to have them have the materials on site, I mean, that it's almost like us saying you have to have steel sheet pile on site for a concrete wall repair. It's kind of a tough ask for us on the contractor for them to absorb the price or pay the additional. And I'm not talking just money, but for something that we don't necessarily require. Whereas if they are on site and they excavate and they do find that water is a problem, then it's absolutely a change in conditions for them. They come and say, we need a change order, and we address it again. They'll have to submit a plan to us so that we can come back to you and have it approved at that point.
So why not do it ahead of time? Be ready for it.
Yeah.
What's that?
Forearmed is forewarned. I mean, we require dewatering on many projects. And I know that you don't want to spend the money, but in the engineering and all that, but you're just talking right now, it would end up being an emergency request if you needed to dewater, if you have all the equipment on site and it all of a sudden becomes a problem, then it's not, we'll come and design it or whatever. To be prepared is far better than to go to Jen and ask for an emergency and everybody's scrambling and you've got cranes and pile drivers and excavators there. That costs more than planning ahead with some sort of simple dewatering system. That's just my 2 cents. Thank you.
Agreed. All right. Anything else? Betsy?
Yeah, so Ryan, the way you're describing it sounds like you're already working with a contractor.
We
And-
do have one lined up to start doing the work, yes.
Okay, so Jen, so we have this situation too, where we have something where there's sort of the engineer and the contractor have been working together on a plan. And so we kind of need to know who the contractor is, and that's the person who has to do it unless somebody's going to have to come in with a new plan. You see where I'm going, Jen?
Mhm.
So if you're working with the contractor, we need to know who the contractor is, and that's going to be part of the conditions.
Right, yeah, no, I understand that. You know, I understand you're gonna be notified of all the parties involved. Yeah, I still have to provide you with a stamped set of plans for what's actually gonna be done out there, right? It says for construction, I can provide all that stuff as long as it's in the conditions. I'm happy to oblige.
All right, Jen, what do we have for a date?
Well, Ryan, I think the board is going to want some sort of dewatering plan developed. So I can put you on the 8th or I can put you on the 15th. We already have, what did I do? Barry went to the 15th. Racing Beach went to the 8th.
We have Willis Lane on the 8th also.
No, I know we have 2 other ones, but one I anticipate isn't going to be going forward. So you can have the June 8th or June 15th.
He doesn't have a DEP number.
Yeah, we don't have a DEP number. And then given the amount of work that we're gonna have to figure out for that dewatering plan, I think the 15th would probably be
Best.
a safer bet at this point.
Okay. 1, 2, 3 on the 15th. Okay, that's fine.
At the request of the applicant, I make a motion to continue this to the 15th of June.
Carlo Hawk, second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to continue this until June 15th. If there's nothing further. All right, Betsy,
Pelter, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Maury,
Carlo Hawk's eye.
Pat,
Pat, you're mute.
yeah,
RSI.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Steve.
No,
It is unanimous. We have continued this until June 15th. Thank you, Mr. McCoy.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time, everyone.
Night.
Next up, Amy C. White, trustee, Amy C. White Trust, 390 Acapesket Road, Falmouth, Mass. For permission to raise RAZE, an existing single-family dwelling, and to construct a new dwelling with all associated appurtenances. Jen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I have promoted John O'Day with Sullivan Engineering up to present the project.
Yes, good evening. John O'Day from Sullivan Engineering Consulting. I'm representing the applicants, the Whites. May I share the plans with you all?
Sure.
Thank you. So we have about a ½ an acre parcel of land on Acapesket Road abutting Green Pond. It's developed or was redeveloped around 1990 with a single family dwelling. Our wetland resources, our land under ocean, land containing shellfish, a coastal beach, a coastal bank being the existing armored face. And they also have land subject to coastal storm flowage falling along that coastal bank. Our project as proposed is to raise or demolish the existing single-family dwelling and construct a new dwelling. The proposed dwelling will be pulled further landward from the existing conditions. The proposed development results in a reduction of square footage within the A zone to the coastal bank. Results in a overall reduction of hardscape impervious, any alterations within the total buffer zone areas as well. We did offer some enhancement plantings along the edge of the lawn. We have proposed a limit of work, drainage for the roof and patio runoffs. I hope it's a pretty straightforward project. We did have a chance to chat with staff before we even submitted this. I have received a staff report. Maybe I'll just touch on a couple of those items right up front. They've requested that we have a surveyor stamp on our plan as well, which is not a problem at all. We did look at the building plans and talk with the architect today. We don't believe there will be any steps needed off the porch based on the existing floor elevation, which is going to change. We one step down onto the porch and then one step off into the yard. Seems to work with the existing grades. We did locate today the license for the existing pier and are happy to provide that. Staff has noted that there was some maintenance work on the pier, and we are happy to work with them to follow up with any requirements that may be needed on that front. There are 4 trees that we had shown behind the garage, kind of along the edge of the existing driveway, right by the 100-foot buffer. They're in somewhat close proximity to the dwelling, so we had requested to remove those. The plan did not offer any replacement trees. If those are important trees to members of the commission, we can certainly take a closer look at that. I did go back by again today. I think that, you know, the 2 close to the property line could probably stay. And if we needed to work on replacements for the others, we've talked with the architects, and you know, they'd even like to see them stay if possible, but if not, are certainly open to doing replacements. There is an existing, there's some prior conditions that had been brought up. There is existing right around that 1,000 square feet of backyard, which I think was actually a requirement from the revetment project, not the house project, if I have the numbers correctly. When we pull our house landward, the size of our backyard does increase. There was some prior conditions about a 10-foot buffer strip. We're happy to work with staff to make sure that that is intact, enhanced if needed, replace any plants that maybe shouldn't be in there. We did look back at those old plans, and I would kind of note, I don't know if we're being overly conservative or whether the coastal bank line has changed since 1990 because of changes in flood elevations, etc. But I did notice that they had showed the house as being 29 feet from the coastal bank, where we're only 22. So our bank line might be a little bit further landward. So that 10-foot original buffer, we can make sure it's in the right place anyway and work with staff on that. And so I think with that, I would be happy to take the plan down and answer any questions the commissioner or staff may have.
Thank you. Jen?
No, I think Mr. O'Day met with us, prior to filing, because it's been a while since he's been before the Falmouth Concom. And after we met with him, when we received the filing, Alyssa does what she does best, researches all the old files, and that's when we discovered that there was previously required buffer vegetation on the site that no longer exists. So that does need to be addressed. So I think that John's, willing to address all of the staff's comments. Thank you for looking at talking with the architects. Sometimes we see these decks and porches with no stairs, and then they're constructed and there's staircases that are moving closer. And it's a struggle to have someone, have to cut off their staircase and everything else. So appreciate you checking with the architect. And I think we'll just need to see a revised plan and look at those old orders and reestablish that buffer zone. Anything else, Alyssa?
Just to confirm, if you could send us a copy of the license or that doc, I'll just make sure that the revisions that were made are still in compliance with the license configuration. And I'm not sure how the board feels about adding those kayak holders. I'm not sure if that requires a minor modification. I don't know if you know the answer to that, Jen. But if you can send that license to us, that would be great.
All right, Peter.
No questions.
Steve?
I like the kayak holders. I don't know that changes anything, but I thought there was a great plan. They moved the house backwards. They at least away from the water, and addressed a lot of the issues, I think. Good plan.
Betsy?
No questions. I'm fine with the project.
Kevin?
No questions.
Maury?
Just to on the trees that we should have the caliper inch so we know what is being removed and what needs to be replaced. And also, is there going to be an increase in flow for the septic?
We can check on the trees. The existing septic system did pass inspection. We are exploring the idea of replacing that. And if we did, we would take it, move it even further out of any jurisdiction. And we would be looking into whether or not we could get up to a 4th bedroom, I think, looking at the architect's floor plans.
Yeah, that's what I just want to make sure that you have the capacity in that existing septic system. And if you are going to keep that one, I would recommend that there's some protection during the demo and it has to be officially located. I know it's from the as-built, but they're not always accurate. Just so there's no damage to it. And if you are going to increase flow, then you're going to come back to us for an amendment. Thank you.
Pat?
No questions, thank you.
Jen, is there anything in the public chat function, please?
Nothing in the public chat, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Do we need to continue this?
Well, we need the plan to have that buffer zone reestablished, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, so I guess we do.
The PLS stamp
Yep,
and
caliper inches of the trees.
calipers of trees and if you're going to have the change in flow for the septic.
John, do you think you could get a plan into us by next Wednesday? So you could be
I
on
do
the 8th?
office hours. Are you doing office hours on Friday? Is that when we met last time? Yeah.
Alyssa, are we doing office hours on Friday? We talked about that today.
Yeah, we do have them for, I didn't know if you'd be in the office that day. If not, we could do it.
I'll be in the office.
Okay.
I think with a quick meeting on that, we could confirm those planting areas and make sure we have a good list, and we could be getting it cleaned up at the beginning of the week, certainly.
Excellent. So why don't we can continue this to the 8th with an anticipation of a revised plan by the 1st? Okay.
At the want to do it together?
No, you do it.
At the request of the applicant, make a motion to continue this to June 8th.
Carlo Hawk, second.
All right. Jen, are we getting slammed on the 8th or what?
No, I mean, we have 2 already on the books, but I know one's going to be continued. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. That's it.
All right.
And
So
I'm not quite sure Willis is going to be ready for the 8th anyway. So
Okay, but if we have the information we're looking for, then it should be.
yeah, this
short and
one
sweet
should be
anyway.
easy enough, as well as
Okay.
55 Racing Beach, I'm not too worried.
All right.
Mr. O'Day is going to make it really simple for us to review these changes.
We'll try to get in and out quick.
Name of the game.
Well, sometimes that's the thing. It's no reflection on you, Mr. O'Day. I'm just, in general, it's, you know, when a continuance comes back in, if we just deal with what's the missing pieces rather than start all over again, it should be quick, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
So, all right, so we have a motion and a second to continue until 6/8. Betsy,
Gladfelder, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Maury,
Earl Hawks Eye.
Pat,
RSI.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Steve.
And I,
It is unanimous. We have continued this until 6/8. Thank you, Mr. O'Day.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Night.
Good
Night.
Next up, Scott and Kerry Tellier, Stoker Property Holdings LLC, 87 Colonial Way, Falmouth, Mass. For permission to remove bamboo and cedar tree stumps. Establish lawn and plant 5 eastern red cedar trees. Then,
Yes, Mr. Chairman, yep, here comes Tom Bunker. Yeah, promoted Tom Bunker up so he can present his project.
Thank you. Yes, for the record, my name is Tom Bunker. BSS Design, representing Scott Tellier, the owner of 87 Colonial Way. This is an after the fact application. There's actually an RDA filed and partially approved a couple of weeks ago. Approved that they can start some of the work on the structure, but the removal of the bamboo would have to be done under, is now to be done under a notice of intent filing. I will share my screen if I may.
yes, sir.
Okay, there we go. Bigger. Okay. So this existing property here, you saw this before. There was a large stand of bamboo across the back, spanning the back 2 sides of the property through here. If you've been out there, it was removed. The bamboo was cut down. Dead and dying cedar trees were cut down, and the stumps are all still there. There are a few trees left on what is the east of the larger backyard area. There are a few cedar trees left. The few that had any life left to them. On the west side of the shed, there's actually quite a few. The count was that 24 trees were removed. As I said, mostly all, well, in very poor condition, if not already dead. And there are 24 remaining. These are cedar trees, and mainly in this area on the east side of the shed. I say that I think they did a good job of cutting down and clearing the bamboo out without damaging the good trees. And you can see that the stumps that are in some of these areas are obviously dead. Others not so, couldn't quite tell as well, but I think by the loss of the red color, or the lack of the red color, I would say, in the stumps, I think they were kind of already aged dead cedar wood and not freshly cut. What I was proposing to do is some type of, well, to strip the loam, the stumps, whatever they're called, rhizomes, the runners of the bamboo out of here. Right now, it's growing back about 5 or 6 feet tall already. It's shooting up. It's got to be done quickly, soon. We go to I think an approved location is the Bourne landfill, where it does get buried and not put into a stump dump where it might return as mulch or soil. And it will be stripped off and new soil put on, graded out. There's some hills and piles of trash and some other stuff back there. It needs some grading. Maybe the stone wall get picked up a little bit. There are two options. I mean, the main one that was, I think, suggested was to put a sheet of impervious barrier dug in, put it and bury it through the ground here so that none of this bamboo will come up along the perimeter and make it easier to, what I want to do is establish a lawn on clean loam, and then just the course of mowing any of the bamboo shoots will kill it back. That will be a little more difficult to do where there are more trees. At the time when we filed, didn't have time to locate the stumps. That's a staff recommendation, and I would, I'd like it if you could close this. I can get a plan to you. Certainly get a plan to you before, with showing all the trees and the stumps certainly before you have time to make a decision on this, if that would be possible. There'll be no herbicides used, and this project really is to just clean up the property of this one invasive species in particular. But there's also I believe what is garlic mustard, a lot of garlic mustard all over the place. And there's of course also English ivy and bittersweet mixed in here. So there's all sorts of things that needs cleaning. And that's all that we're proposing, is to clean up this area of all the bad stuff. So, there was another question by staff. What would constitute good soil conditions for putting in a root barrier? And really, all I meant was that if there's too many boulders and rocks, you just can't put a trench in there for the root barrier. Wherein this type of horizontal sheeting would be better. But if they find that it's kind of sandy soil or loamy sand, then that would be, I think, considered good material for putting in a root barrier to answer that question. I'll stop sharing and I'll take any questions.
Thank you, sir. Jen?
Yeah, Tom, can you clarify? You said 24 trees remain?
27, 24 were taken down, 24 stumps, and 27 remaining, mainly on the east side of that shed. I'm sorry, the west side.
So in the area where the bamboo was, there's like 27 remaining trees.
There was bamboo. There's, as I said, most of them are, yes, but most of them are on the west side of the shed. And so, yeah, they'll have to work around the trees to finish the job of taking the bamboo out. On the east side of the shed, it's quite a large open area where there are no, or very few. Most of the trees remaining on the east side are near the property line.
So the west side, is where all the trees remain, and on the east side is where they're gone.
Yes.
Okay. So the reason like the staff would want to know how many trees were taken out would be to kind of gauge how many should be put back. But you're saying there's still 27 trees to the west of the shed. And are you counting the trees all the way down to Colonial Way, or just in the area where they took out the bamboo?
In the area where the work was done.
The area where the work was done. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's helpful.
Yeah.
So the board can, and then you're proposing to put back five seats.
Yes, we just had 5. I mean, most of these were, especially where most of the trees remain by the shed. I mean, you can see that the stumps that are there are kind of ancient stumps. As I said, it's less clear on the other side, but I think it's not obvious. But a picture. I mean, I can show you one quick picture. Maybe I can.
That would be great. I think it's just helpful for the board to decide, if they want additional trees besides the 5 that you're proposing, Tom. That's all. That's why we asked.
Yeah, I mean,
Do you want to share your picture?
yeah, well, let me see. I guess to get this, where am I now? Yeah. There was just one of these pictures. It was just a picture I took. If it'll come up, I'll share in a moment.
So now, Tom, while you're looking for your picture, not to throw you, I'm gonna give you the bad news. You don't have a DEP number and you're not listed on the DEP's portal either.
When you mentioned it with the other one, I went and looked, and you're right, I don't have a number, but I do have the receipt.
Yeah, I don't know why, that's why we're mentioning it, because usually if they receive it, they put it up right away, even if you don't have a number, but you guys aren't even listed.
Yeah, well, I have. I can send you the receipt because I went back to my other desk and I printed out that receipt.
I believe you, Tom. I just can't close the hearing without the number.
Yeah. So I'll just show you one picture here that I have briefly. Yeah. Going to see this is actually the shed is the shed is on the neighbor's property. That's what I said. Most of the trees on the east side of the owner's shed are along the property line, and this is one. And so if you notice that this is one of the better trees that were saved. You see way up, there's dead branches on it from this infestation of the bamboo, and there's I mean, this is what's going on now, and there's there's a stump, one of the stumps. And that's, I think, the garlic mustard with a stump next to it. But there's actually not many. Well, there's a stump here and a stump here. But they do look like, when a cedar tree is freshly or not very old cut, it has a clear red color to it.
Yeah.
And these are all pretty faded out. So, and they were, as I was told, of course I didn't see them, but they were cut in like January, and I think they would still exhibit more color after whatever 5 months than they do now if they had been healthy and alive. Anyway, that's all I wanted to show you.
Okay, and then you're proposing a wooden fence along that stone wall, correct?
Yes, a wooden fence and pulled back on the property enough so that it not going to disturb the wall, but it's back a foot or two away from the property line.
Okay, well, I think the board just has to decide if you want to see any additional replacement cedars in this site. It is flood zone only, so unless Alyssa has anything to add, I think I'm good.
It'll just be after, I was just going to say quickly, it has to be after several years of tending this to kill off the bamboo before probably anything. I put the trees up there because there was less bamboo. That was mostly more bittersweet and stuff where I did show the trees, not so much of the bamboo, but putting it in the other area will be probably several years down the road before I think enough bamboo before it's sufficiently
eradicated,
killed or degraded, and so it won't come back up.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Tom.
Yeah.
Alyssa?
Yes, my only comment was, as Jen said, we were just curious what portion of the biomass was removed from the property, which is why we were curious how many trees were remaining and how many stumps there were. And since it's flood zone only, the board will have to decide if they want to see any restoration, but it's great to know that so many trees are still on the property. Thank you.
All right. Steve?
Yeah, my opinion is that the lot's significantly covered with trees. A replacement would be unnecessary considering it's just a flood zone. Thank you.
All right. Betsy?
I have no comments.
All right. Evan?
No comments.
Maury?
The only comment is I'm glad that they're eradicating the bamboo. That's quite a woman's work. It's a lot. And I'm glad to know that they saved as many good trees as they could. It's a big project. Thank you.
Pat,
My only comment, Tom, is on your notes, you did a cut and paste and say that it's in the riverfront area in a endangered species habitat.
Good one, Tom.
No, that's under not within. No trees.
It
Those
says
locusts
not
are
within?
There's
You put a
not within the
negative?
riverfront area. Is what the note says.
Okay. It threw me when I was at the center. I was trying to figure out where we were. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I have no other comments. Thank you.
There's no river there.
Thanks.
Peter.
I agree with Maury's comments.
All right. Jen, is there anything in the public chat function, please?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Then I'll make a motion to close the hearing and
Can't
under
close it, we
advisement.
don't have a DEP number.
Okay, I won't. We'll wait to see when we're going to continue it to.
Tom, why don't we just, if we're DEP only, why don't we just continue you to the 8th? It's DEP only.
As soon
I
as
mean,
possible, yeah. I mean, is that really a requirement or just for no DEP number?
I can't issue a permit without the DEP number.
No, I know you can't issue a permit. I mean, I know I can't guarantee it, but it's 2
Mm-mm.
weeks away and we should definitely have a DEP number by then.
I understand that, Tom, but I can't chance it. Sorry.
Risk a constructive approval, Tom.
Yeah, Tom, can't chance it.
Oh,
so-
one of those. Okay, I don't want to get into that.
Yeah, so why don't we just continue to the 8th, and I'm sure you'll have it by then, and then we'll open and close you real quick, okay?
I'll
You
make a
don't even
motion
have to show up.
at the
Okay.
request, at the cheerful request of the applicant to continue to June 8th.
Hello, Hawk, second.
All righty.
Only.
We have a motion and a second to continue this until June 8th. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Maury,
Hello, Hawk's eye.
RSI.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Steve.
At night.
It is unanimous. We have continued this until June 8th. Thank you, Mr. Bunker.
Okay, thank you. Good night.
Aye.
Hey, Tom.
Right, Tom.
Good night.
All right, next up are continued hearings under a notice of intent. Byron Massef and Susan Keller, 72 Pheasant Lane, East Falmouth, Mass, for permission to expand and alter an existing licensed fixed pier and ramp. Jenny, you gonna surprise me?
Oh, yes. Bob Ament is here to address the board regarding this project.
Oh, boy.
Good evening.
All
That's
right.
quite an introduction. I know that this project has a lot of history, but I'm new to it. I was engaged by the applicants on about May 5, and I've spent the last 3 weeks getting up to speed, trying to understand both zoning violations and problems with the Conservation Commission that were discovered in the course of the review of the pending application to alter the dock. I've met with the building commissioner about zoning issues. I've visited the site. I've met with Jen and Alyssa, who have been really terrific in helping me to understand the matter. I have had multiple conversations with the engineer and the surveyor who have prepared a plan for me with information about the zoning, which wasn't previously available, so that I could understand that aspect of it. And the goal was to determine the interplay of the zoning issues and the Conservation Commission issues, and see what resolution could be made with respect to the violations, in particular, the installation of a current pool, a small structure that was placed on the lot. And since the entire lot is in Zone A under the Conservation Commission wetlands regulations, that work and other work that's been done on the property should have been permitted and was not. And then when installed without Conservation Commission permits, also didn't have the zoning and building department permits that were required. So my goal has been to figure out what's going on and come up with solutions and figure the order in which we might solve the problems. And I have to report to you that it isn't clear to me or to the engineer and surveyor that we can solve the problem and keep everything that's been done on the property. The paver walkway and patio around the wave pool, which by the way is located landward of the house, but still in jurisdiction. That the stone, rather pavers, have all been removed, which was most of the new impervious surface. And we're not sure that we're going to be able to keep any of the pool. I would say it's likely we can't. It's somewhere between likely and highly probable that we cannot do that. I think that a decision will be made on that in the next day or two. The engineers have told me that they're prepared and have already done most of the work to address all of the concerns that were raised by the commission in its staff report issued months ago. And that they can do that and submit a plan perhaps as soon as 3 weeks. So a 30-day extension would be consistent with that. I'd like to request and suggest an extension to your first meeting in July. That will give us time not only to get the plans ready to address all of the concerns and adjust the dock plan, but also to make sure we have a good opportunity to meet with staff to make sure we've done the right things. So that's the report. We don't have a new plan, but I think we're now poised to move forward and address all the concerns, have a plan that meets your requirements, and that's about it.
Jen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the only thing I would ask Bob is, Bob, if you did want the continuance to July 13th.
I had guessed that you were meeting on July 6th.
No, we're not meeting. It would be July 13th. That prior to that, when you have a plan, give yourself enough time to meet with Alyssa and I. Let us give us a couple of, like, a week or so to review the plan and get any comments back to you, so you can make revisions to get them in by the 6th to get to the board by the 13th.
The engineers have told me they could be ready for a meeting in 30 days. I would suggest a little longer period so we can do just that and really get this right. And we'll get it in. If we can get it in 3 weeks, great. Then you'll have time to make all those comments.
So are you asking for the 13th of July?
Yes, please.
At the request of the applicant, I'll make a motion to continue this to July 13th.
Carla Hawk, second.
All right. I don't think I need to ask this, but I'm gonna, just for clarity, the public, if we're just gonna continue.
You want to know if there's public chat, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, sure.
Only attorney telling me he's here to represent his client. Which happened before the hearing, so no, there's no public
The
chat.
answer's no, Jamie.
Thank you. All right, we have a motion to second to continue this till July 13th. Betsy,
Gladfelder, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Maury,
Harlow Hawks eye.
Pat,
Harris, aye.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Steve.
And I,
It is unanimous. We have continued this until July 13th. Thank you, Mr. Ahmet.
Thank you very much.
thank you.
All right, next up, continued request to amend an existing order of conditions. Greg DeAmbra, Beckles Road Realty Trust, 31 Beckles Road, Falmouth, Mass. Request to amend the order of conditions for Mass DEP number 4643 to permit the installation of 2 fire pits, a grass paved reinforced turf driveway, 10 cedar trees, and mitigation plantings. Jen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I have promoted Matt Cost up to present the project. Matt, is there anybody else I'm promoting up? Is Greg here?
I think Greg is out there.
Yep, okay. I wasn't sure if this was the Greg I thought it was, so. I'm promoting Greg Billowitz up from Billowitz Associates as well. At least I hope it's Greg.
Well, it looks like it's a Greg.
Yep, it's Greg. Hello, Greg.
How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good.
All right, Mr. Costa, you beginning?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, Matt Costa, Holmes and McGrath. Greg and I are representing the applicant for this request to amend the existing order of conditions. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen if that's okay with you.
Sure.
So, as stated, this project is currently ongoing, under construction, has a valid order of conditions. We're here tonight requesting a couple of minor changes. If you can see my cursor on the screen,
Yes.
we're requesting to add a fire pit in the backyard, fire pit in the front yard. And those 2 items require mitigation, and there's been mitigation added along the side of the property. Greg's plan, a little bit more colorful, you can follow along here. Fire pit in the back, fire pit in the front. This hatched out areas, the additional mitigation. It's pretty straightforward requests with a relatively minor change. We do have an additional driveway area that's going to be reinforced turf. The commission has seen that before. We do believe that this project meets all the applicable performance standards, and we are respectfully requesting you issue an amended order of conditions. Greg and I would be happy to answer any questions. Would you like me to stop sharing or leave it up?
If you would, please. Thank you. Jen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. The only thing I think I would add, and I'll defer to Alyssa after this, is that usually the board has in the past made it a practice if they were going to be proposing the grass pavers and not mitigating for it, to set aside an area of mitigation. Matt, are you mitigating for that grass paver area?
I'll let Greg answer that one.
Okay.
We don't have it included at the moment. And actually the area that's within the B, that's the grass paver area, it's actually only about 90 square feet.
Mhm.
And an area that we can mitigate for it and allocate it in the plan is on the top of the existing retaining wall, right and adjacent to the driveway.
Okay.
It's really tight quarters on the property, so there's very limited space. That's probably an area that's probably the most appropriate. And even at that, what we have allocated for plant material in that is really kind of within our mitigation mix of inkberry. So it's, if necessary, we can account for that. So it's about 180 square feet required.
Yeah. So sometimes the board, or in the past, the board has required an area set aside for the grass paver area, just in case the grass paver area fails and it doesn't function as it should.
Yep.
We've seen them function beautifully. I know of a property off of Wild Harbor Road that, I mean, they work fine. They look great. But we've also seen properties, Greg, where they fail.
Yep.
And they just become this, this hard kind of impervious. So that's why the board in the past has required maybe an area set aside in case they don't work as anticipated, then mitigation at compliance time can be placed there.
Okay.
So maybe, identifying an area on a revised plan might be helpful.
Easy to do. Yeah, really easy to do.
I have nothing to add unless Alyssa has something else.
I have nothing to add. Thank you.
All right. All right, commissioner comments back to the top. Betsy.
I have no comments.
Kevin?
No comments, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Maury?
I just had one on the revised section on 51922, remove proposed trees. What trees were removed?
Not sure what it's referring to.
Sure, I can answer that for you. Picture's worth 1,000 words, so let me just show you. We originally had a series of trees along this line over here. Can you see that, Maury?
Yeah.
And this is the revised plan.
Okay. And those were just voluntary, those trees?
Yes.
Okay. I like them. And usually we do want the mitigation closer to the resource area, and I'm noticing that for the fire pits, it kind of moved closer to the road instead of, down to where the resources are. But that was the only concern I had. Thank you.
Pat?
No comments, thank you.
Peter?
No questions. Thank you.
Steve?
No questions, thank you.
All right. Jen, is there anything in the public chat function, please?
No, Mr. Chairman.
All right.
I'll make a motion to close the hearing and take it under advisement.
Harris, second.
All right. We have a motion and a second to close the hearing. If there's nothing further. All right, Betsy.
Gladfelter, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin.
Brian, aye.
Maury.
Carl Hawks, aye.
Pat.
Harris, aye.
Peter.
Walsh, aye.
Steve.
Pat and I.
It is unanimous. We have closed this hearing. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Greg.
Good night.
Good night.
Night.
All right, next up. Hearings under an enforcement order. Louis Maglio Jr. and Betty Maglio, 57 Showa Drive, East Falmouth, Mass. Unpermitted construction of a shed, platform, and staircase within conservation jurisdiction. Jen or Alyssa, I'm not sure who's taking
I'm
this.
gonna let Alyssa take this one.
All right.
Yes, so staff came across this violation while reviewing aerial photos of a neighboring property. I have been on site with the homeowner and discussed the shed platform and staircase construction. that the homeowners were unaware that those required permits. And I think it was in 2014, they had a septic upgrade, and that's when they bought the property and just tried to create some improvements in the backyard. The homeowners have retained Jack Landers Colley, who did that 2014 plan. And I did receive an email from him today. They are requesting a continuance until June 29th so that he can complete an updated survey and that he can meet with staff and we can get the moving in a direction where some of these items may need to be removed or mitigated for. And that's all I have.
So the 29th, Alyssa?
Correct.
All right. So, Mr. Chairman, we would recommend continuing to the 29th to give Jack Landers Colley time to prepare his site plan.
To prepare you to get ready for the plan. All right.
I'll make a motion to continue this to
June 29.
till when?
June 29.
June 29th.
Carla Hawk, second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to continue this until 6:29. There's nothing else. All right, Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Matthews, aye, Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Maury,
Carla Hawk's aye.
Pat,
Harris, aye.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
and Steve.
Pat and I.
It is unanimous. We have continued this matter until June 29th. Next up, vote, order of conditions. First up, Matthew J. and Elizabeth B. Rader, 10 Meadow Neck Road, Walk Mass.
So the
Mr. Chairman, I'll be right
The
there.
quorum's everybody but Maury.
Just not there yet, guys. Hang on.
I can start, Jen.
Almost there. Almost there.
Yeah, this was the revision for the configuration of the access stairs. And then they constructed a platform and ramp without permits. So they're going to be removing those and restoring the salt marsh.
Yeah,
Thank you.
so that's pretty straightforward, right?
For the most part, yeah.
Yeah,
They did say that they were going to provide monitoring reports twice a year, 3 years, but we could condition that like we usually would for restoration.
Yeah. I'll make a motion to issue an order of conditions as discussed. Gladfelter.
Second.
They're going to repair part of the marsh, right, Alyssa?
Correct, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
More beach grass and monitoring that, yeah.
all right. We have a motion and a second to accept the order of conditions as discussed. Is there anything further? All right, Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Matthews, aye, Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Pat,
Harris, aye.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Steve.
Aye.
All right, it is unanimous. We have issued an order of conditions. Next up, Bruce and Hetty Butch, 172 Grand Avenue, Falmouth, Mass. Maury's not on this quorum.
Correct. She is on some of them, so we can't let her go.
All right, so I have a note about, there's one new tree. And we want to make a finding that there's 43 square foot going in the velocity zone. So
Yeah.
it starts eating away at the 200 allowed.
Mhm.
And
my notes as
you
well.
wanted a tree, right, Alyssa?
Yes, we wanted a tree and we did receive a revised plan from Raul showing a proposed tree. I think it was going to be either a tupelo, holly, or cedar, a typical native. And he also did make a note about the increase in the velocity zone. He specifically called
Excellent.
on the plan.
Thank you, Raul, on top of things.
It's an attaboy, but not even here to enjoy it. So I'll make a motion to issue an order of conditions as discussed.
Harris second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to issue an order of conditions. If there's nothing else. All right, Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Matthews, aye, Kevin,
O'Brien, I.
Pat,
Harris, I.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Steve.
Pat and I.
It is unanimous. We have issued an order of conditions. Next up, Melissa T. Odell, George Veronis Revocable Trust, 54 Sam Turner Road, Falmouth, Mass.
This is the septic upgrade on that, almost like that kind of old camping site, right on Crooked Pond. The tank's
Yeah.
going down below, and then they're pumping everything up the slope to the leach field at the top near the road.
Yep. I think we covered everything.
Yeah.
Kind of simple. Anybody have anything?
I'll make a motion to issue an order of conditions as discussed.
Pat and second.
All right. And I don't know if you said it, Betsy, but Maury is not on the quorum. All right. So if there's nothing else, Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Matthews, aye, Kevin,
O'Brien, I.
Pat,
Harris, I.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Steve.
Pat and I.
It is unanimous. We have issued an order of conditions. Next up, Stephen and Stephanie Kasock, 39 Jetty Lane, West Falmouth, Mass.
Maury's on the next three. Everybody's on the next three.
Okay.
I think this
This-
one, the only concern staff had was the boats on the adjacent property. That they said that weren't their vessels, and then Betsy was concerned with the amount of trees being taken down towards the back of the lot. It seemed like all of them were being taken down. And I think they said that they would work with us to plant trees.
Yeah,
Yes,
they
I
were
did.
going to see if they could keep that oak, but either way, they were all the planting more trees.
Yeah, Maury asked if they could reconfigure the driveway to keep that oak. But
We'll just have them work with us to plant additional trees.
Did they ever add the first floor elevation?
I don't remember seeing a revised plan, Peter, do you?
I did not receive a revised plan.
But we'll get a revised plan with that first floor elevation, Peter.
Okay.
All right. Anybody have anything else? All right.
hey, I'll make Gladfelter, make a motion to issue an order of conditions as discussed.
Carlo Hawk, second.
All right. We have a motion and a second to issue an order of conditions. If there's nothing else, Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Matthews, aye, Kevin,
O'Brien, I.
Maury,
Carlo Hawk's aye.
Pat,
Harris, I.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Steve.
Pat and I.
It is unanimous. We have issued an order of conditions. Next up, Christopher Tomasini, 303 Shorewood Drive, Falmouth, Mass.
This is the one by Cape and Islands. They revised the plan, adjusted the mitigation. I think that's all I had. Anything, Alyssa?
I do have a note. I don't remember everything that it means. Something about conditioning a report before the work for the foundation.
Including a condition that they will have a certificate from a structural engineer.
Because it's a two-story. I mean, adding a second story, right?
Yeah, that no construction can begin until such time as they have a certificate from a certification from a structural engineer.
Got it.
Hey, anybody have anything else? Okay.
I'll make a motion to issue an order of conditions as discussed. Gladfelter.
Harlow Hawk, second.
All right. We have a motion and a second to issue an order of conditions. If there's nothing else. All right. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Maury,
Harlow Hawk's aye.
Pat,
Harris, aye.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Steve.
Pat and I.
It is unanimous. We have issued an order of conditions. Next up, AC Cape Cod LLC, 836 Palmer Ave, Falmouth, Mass.
Auto camp. Amended order to, they requested to amend the order of conditions, to kind of build the wall from the original construction access, which this board said they weren't allowed to do, or cut the trees, and then they did cut the trees and didn't have the on-site. So the board can either allow them to go with the original construction methodology. They had some sort of replanting scheme, but it was kind of outside of our jurisdiction, right, Alyssa?
It was just outside. And they did want us to note that Jen and I did meet with them on.
Oh yeah, they did. So we did meet with them on Monday. I think it was Monday, just to look at the stabilization of the slope right now, looking at any runoff and just kind of talking through the project with them. But we did meet with them on Monday to see if there was any further stabilization required on that site. And it looks pretty stable right now.
We discussed how the scope of this project is significant and that we should require them file a notice of intent and get a peer review consultant. That would mean deny the request for amendment. That's how we ended the discussion.
Yep. So, you just you always put a positive motion on the floor. And if you want to not vote for the amendment, you just do not you just say no.
So I'll put a motion on the table to issue an order of conditions.
Amended order of conditions.
Amended order of conditions as discussed.
Who second?
I did, Harlow Hawks.
Thank you. Okay. Before we vote, just clarification, Jen, you said something about the mitigation is out of jurisdiction.
Correct.
You mean they're asking to put it out of jurisdiction?
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we have a motion and a second on the table to issue an order of conditions as discussed. So if there's nothing else. All right, Betsy.
Gladfelter, no.
Okay. Matthews, no. Kevin?
O'Brien, no.
Maury?
Harlow Hawks, no.
Pat?
Harris, no.
Peter?
Peter Walsh, no.
Steve?
Pat, no.
Sensing a theme here.
Well then.
All right. Denied. And it's unanimous for the record. All right. I have two notes before you guys run to take off. Reminder, there's no meeting next week. And even though it's a little early, but because it's our last meeting before Liz's last day, Jen, would you extend our thanks as a board to Liz for her help for the last, how many months here? 6 months, 8 months,
I would be happy to, Jamie.
please. And that's all I have.
I make a motion to adjourn. Carla Hawks.
And second,
Gladfelter, aye.
Matthews, aye.
O'Brien, I.
Carla Hawks, aye.
RSI.
Walsh, aye.
Patton, aye.
The Hardingly unanimous. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Good
Night,
night,
everybody.
guys.